David Ben-Gurion, pioneer and patriarch, the father of modern Israel, read and published by Mr. Books. Few figures loom larger in the story of modern nationhood than David Ben-Gurion. Born in a small Polish town, he rose from modest beginnings to become the founding father of the State of Israel, guiding his people through the tumultuous waves of history, trial, and hope. Ben-Gurion's legacy is not built solely on his position as Israel's first prime minister, but on his unwavering commitment to the Zionist dream, his pragmatic leadership during times of existential threat, and his lasting influence on the consciousness of a state still young by the measure of nations. His life is the tale of a pioneer who not only dreamed but dared, who in moments of daunting adversity became the patriarch of a modern nation. This book traces Ben-Gurion's journey from childhood, where his ideals began to form amidst stories of Jewish persecution and survival, through his early activism in Ottoman and British-ruled Palestine to his emergence as an unparalleled leader with the formidable task of transforming a vision of homecoming into the reality of statehood. The narrative further explores his stewardship during the perilous early years of Israel, his pivotal decisions during war and peace, and the ever-present tension between lofty ideals and urgent necessities. Through his eyes, we see the formidable responsibilities borne by those who undertake to birth a nation. Chapters 5 through 8 delve into perhaps the most critical and dramatic era of his life: the momentous declaration of independence, the implacable challenges of war, the Herculean labor of laying state foundations, and the enduring resonance of his vision. These chapters sketch not only the man, the leader wrestling with humility and iron will, but also the land and the people he helped shape. Ben-Gurion's story resonates with empathy and complexity. He was a man of profound contradictions, both a dreamer and a realist, a believer in people and institutions, yet skeptical of unbridled power. He could inspire, sometimes alienate, but always command respect. His legacy, marked by both praise and critique, remains a touchstone for Israelis and engaged citizens worldwide, as his ideas and decisions continue to resonate through the modern state of Israel. Through a descriptive and empathetic lens, this work invites readers to walk alongside Ben-Gurion on his path, to witness his fears, hopes, and the burdens he bore for a vision greater than himself. It is a journey not only into Israel's past, but into the universal struggle for freedom, identity, and nationhood. Before we dive in, make sure to subscribe and hit that like button to support the channel. And don't forget to turn on the notification bell so you never miss an audiobook that could change your life. Now let's begin. Enjoy. Chapter 1. Origins, Childhood and Early Influences. David Ben-Gurion, originally named David Grun, was born on October 16, 1886, in the small Polish town of Plonsk. He was the third child in a Jewish family deeply rooted in tradition. Plonsk, which was then under Russian rule, was a tight-knit community, alive with the rhythms of Yiddish, the prayers of Shabbat, and the quiet hope of a people longing for acceptance. For the Grun family, and others like them, daily life was a balance of tradition and adaptation, hope and caution. David's father, Avigdor Grun, was an active member of the local Zionist organization even before Zionism was widely known among Jews. Avigdor, respected for his wisdom and sense of duty, worked as a notary and instilled in his children a love of books, an appreciation of history, and a deep curiosity about the plight of the Jewish people. David's mother, Shindel, was a gentle and loving figure. Her early death from illness left a lasting impact on David, shaping his empathy and sense of loss. From a young age, Ben-Gurion stood out for his serious, thoughtful nature. He listened intently to his father's conversations with local intellectuals, which covered topics such as the future of the Jewish people, the land of Israel, and the possibility of redemption. Stories of Jerusalem, biblical heroes, and the hardships of exile fueled his imagination and would shape his lifelong quest for a homeland. Life in late 19th century Plonsk was difficult for Jewish families. Pogroms and anti-Semitic decrees posed constant danger, making Jewish life vulnerable. Russian authorities placed strict limits on education and job opportunities. These injustices, which Ben-Gurion observed firsthand, left deep wounds, but also demanded inner strength. The feeling of being an outsider, never fully accepted, always under threat, influenced his sense of justice, purpose, and the urgent need for a homeland. Education was both a privilege and an act of rebellion. Ben-Gurion's studies were primarily religious. He spent many hours reading Hebrew texts, learning traditional Jewish sources. Still, his father encouraged him to pursue secular studies, such as Russian literature and European history, which broadened his perspective. The writings of Theodor Herzl, the founder of modern Zionism, were especially influential, inspiring young Jews everywhere, including Ben-Gurion. In his early teens, Ben-Gurion co-founded the youth group Ezra, which aimed to revive Hebrew and reconnect with Jewish roots. At a time when assimilation often seemed like the safest option, this was a bold move. The group held reading sessions, debates, studied Jewish history, and even ran secret language lessons. These activities were more than hobbies. They were acts of defiance that kept hope alive amid poverty and prejudice. David also struggled with poor health, which left him physically weak and reflective. These challenges did not dampen his resolve. Instead, they taught him resilience and compassion. Faced with adversity, he drew strength from family, community, and a shared sense of destiny. The environment of Plonsk, with its hardships and moments of warmth, was Ben-Gurion's first test. It shaped his character and central question: could the Jewish people, scattered and battered, find their way home? This question, born in the mind of a determined boy in the Russian Pale, would guide his life and ultimately change Jewish and world history. Chapter 1. Origins, Childhood and Early Influences. David Ben-Gurion, originally named David Grun, was born on October 16, 1886, in the small Polish town of Plonsk. He was the third child in a Jewish family deeply rooted in tradition. Plonsk, which was then under Russian rule, was a tight-knit community, alive with the rhythms of Yiddish, the prayers of Shabbat, and the quiet hope of a people longing for acceptance. For the Grun family, and others like them, daily life was a balance of tradition and adaptation, hope and caution. David's father, Avigdor Grun, was an active member of the local Zionist organization even before Zionism was widely known among Jews. Avigdor, respected for his wisdom and sense of duty, worked as a notary and instilled in his children a love of books, an appreciation of history, and a deep curiosity about the plight of the Jewish people. David's mother, Scheindl, was a gentle and loving figure. Her early death from illness left a lasting impact on David, shaping his empathy and sense of loss. From a young age, Ben-Gurion stood out for his serious, thoughtful nature. He listened intently to his father's conversations with local intellectuals, which covered topics such as the future of the Jewish people, the land of Israel, and the possibility of redemption. Stories of Jerusalem, biblical heroes, and the hardships of exile fueled his imagination and would shape his lifelong quest for a homeland. Life in late 19th century Plonsk was difficult for Jewish families. Pogroms and anti-Semitic decrees posed constant danger, making Jewish life vulnerable. Russian authorities placed strict limits on education and job opportunities. These injustices, which Ben-Gurion observed firsthand, left deep wounds, but also demanded inner strength. The feeling of being an outsider, never fully accepted, always under threat, influenced his sense of justice, purpose, and the urgent need for a homeland. Education was both a privilege and an act of rebellion. Ben-Gurion's studies were primarily religious. He spent many hours reading Hebrew texts, learning traditional Jewish sources. Still, his father encouraged him to pursue secular studies, such as Russian literature and European history, which broadened his perspective. The writings of Theodor Herzl, the founder of modern Zionism, were especially influential, inspiring young Jews everywhere, including Ben-Gurion. In his early teens, Ben-Gurion co-founded the youth group Ezra, which aimed to revive Hebrew and reconnect with Jewish roots. At a time when assimilation often seemed like the safest option, this was a bold move. The group held reading sessions, debates, studied Jewish history, and even ran secret language lessons. These activities were more than hobbies. They were acts of defiance that kept hope alive amid poverty and prejudice. David also struggled with poor health, which left him physically weak and reflective. These challenges did not dampen his resolve. Instead, they taught him resilience and compassion. Faced with adversity, he drew strength from family, community, and a shared sense of destiny. The environment of Plonsk, with its hardships and moments of warmth, was Ben-Gurion's first test. It shaped his character and central question: could the Jewish people, scattered and battered, find their way home? This question, born in the mind of a determined boy in the Russian Pale, would guide his life and ultimately change Jewish and world history. Chapter 3. Trials and Determination. From Ottoman Palestine to British Mandate. After Ben-Gurion arrived in Ottoman Palestine, a new era of determination and transformation began. Life in Palestine was tough and uncertain. The settlers worked in a harsh climate with little infrastructure. They faced diseases, long working hours, exhaustion, and misunderstandings within their community. Ben-Gurion's experience reflected the hardships of his entire generation. He worked in agricultural communities like Segera and Petah Tikva, and came to believe that only nation-building through hard work and shared sacrifice would achieve Jewish independence. For him, working the land was a spiritual task as much as an economic one. Every field he plowed was a reaffirmation that Jews belonged on the land, but it was also a time of growing challenges. Relationships with the local Arab population were strained, and Ben-Gurion recognized the rightness of the Zionist cause alongside its complexities. He encountered suspicion and occasional violence, which forced him to think more deeply about the future. He called for cooperation and tried to understand others' perspectives, even when disagreements arose. During this phase, Ben-Gurion's leadership emerged more clearly. He joined and helped establish workers' groups, including the Poale Zion, a party which combined socialism with Zionism. Even as he struggled to support himself, he worked to unite the community under a sense of shared purpose. His speeches and writings from this time show urgency and compassion, balancing the need for survival with the importance of solidarity. World War I brought sudden upheaval. The Ottoman authorities viewed Zionist immigrants with suspicion, leading to crackdowns and exile. Ben-Gurion was expelled from Palestine, first to Egypt and then to New York. Far from home, he was once again an outsider, but his determination remained strong. In New York, he encountered a vibrant but fragmented Jewish community. He worked hard to inspire American Jews to support Zionism, organizing meetings, raising money, and broadening his political skills. During these years, he married Paula Munweis, a fellow activist. Their partnership was built on shared ideals and mutual respect, giving Ben-Gurion both warmth and inspiration. After the war, the collapse of the Ottoman Empire reshaped the Middle East. Palestine came under British rule, governed by the League of Nations mandate. The Balfour Declaration of 1917, Britain's support for a national home for the Jewish people, energized the Zionist movement, but also heightened tensions with local Arabs. Ben-Gurion understood that the dream of statehood was closer, but that the struggle ahead would be challenging. Upon returning to Palestine, Ben-Gurion resumed leadership roles with renewed energy. He became a leader in the Histadrut, the main organization for Jewish workers, which also played a central role in economic and community life. Blending idealism and realism, Ben-Gurion managed to bring together various Zionist factions, including right-wing revisionists, socialists, religious settlers, and secular pioneers. The British Mandate era was turbulent. Economic trouble, political disputes, communal growth, and outbreaks of violence, such as Arab riots and revolts, tested the Jewish community. Ben-Gurion's firm but empathetic leadership helped guide them through these storms. He never lost sight of the suffering of others, Jew or Arab, yet remained steadfast in his purpose. By now, Ben-Gurion was widely recognized as a strong leader. He was chosen as the head of the Jewish Agency, effectively making him the main Zionist leader in Palestine. His tireless work ethic, ability to listen and compromise, and commitment to hard work inspired hope and unity. Under his guidance, the foundations for a future state, kibbutzim, schools, towns, and self-defense organizations, were established. These successes came with challenges. Tensions with Arab neighbors grew, governance became more complex, and old divisions remained. Yet Ben-Gurion held fast to the lesson from his earliest years. A nation could only be built and survive by holding on to unity, empathy, and the imperative of building a just society out of the lessons of exile. Chapter 4. Leadership Emergent. Organizing for a homeland. By the end of the 1920s, David Ben-Gurion had become not just a dedicated activist, but the recognized leader of the Yishuv, the Jewish community in Palestine. His rise was the result of years of hard work, building alliances, and an ability to look beyond immediate challenges toward the long-term goal of statehood. Ben-Gurion's leadership came through two key organizations, the Histadrut and the Jewish Agency. The Histadrut was more than a labor union. It operated farms, factories, clinics, schools, and defense organizations acting as a shadow government. The Jewish Agency served as the Zionist movement's diplomatic front, focusing on fundraising, immigrant absorption, and negotiations with the British. Ben-Gurion knew that building a Jewish state required both vision and practical groundwork. He emphasized education, the revival of the Hebrew language, land acquisition, and economic independence. He believed every kibbutz was like a small republic, and every school planted the seeds of future leadership. His focus on constructive Zionism meant that statehood would come from steady daily efforts, not from sudden grants. Ben-Gurion's inspirational vision was sometimes matched by a demanding, uncompromising leadership style. He expected discipline and self-sacrifice, both from himself and others. His hands-on approach kept projects moving, but occasionally caused friction. Still, those who worked closely with him saw a balance of strong-willed determination and sincere concern for people's well-being. The politics of building a nation were complex. Ben-Gurion constantly worked to mediate between various groups, from radical leftists and conservatives to religious communities and rural pioneers. Though open to dialogue, he never lost sight of the larger goal. He listened to criticism and advice, but was not afraid to make difficult decisions. The 1930s brought new urgency. With the rise of Nazism and danger for Jews in Europe, the Zionist mission became more pressing. Ben-Gurion pushed to increase Jewish immigration, even as the British restricted entry in response to Arab opposition. He lobbied officials abroad and organized secret immigration efforts despite official bans. Several crises tested Ben-Gurion's resolve: the Arab Revolt of 1936-1939, violence against Jews and the British, the rise of the Haganah Defense Group, and growing internal divisions. Through all of this, Ben-Gurion urged patience and unity, convinced that endurance and steady building would ensure survival. Under his leadership, the foundations for a future state took shape, even amid conflict. New infrastructure, schools, hospitals, transportation, and centers of self-government were established. Ben-Gurion's commitment held the community together. He was often found visiting settlements, writing letters, and holding long meetings to keep people connected and motivated. This era also showed Ben-Gurion's unique approach to leadership, a blend of realism and empathy. He held people to high standards, but also supported and nurtured future leaders. His empathy, shaped by his struggles, was practical and hard-won. He knew the pain of exclusion and the challenge of building from nothing, and his efforts always echoed the longing and determination of earlier generations. By the time the world approached the chaos of World War II, Ben-Gurion understood that the greatest test was still ahead. Global attention would soon focus on Palestine, and the choices made during these years would determine the fate of a people on the edge of rebirth. Chapter 5. Declaration and Defiance. The Birth of Israel, May 14, 1948. In a modest hall at 16 Rothschild Boulevard, Tel Aviv, David Ben-Gurion rose before a gathered assembly of Jewish leaders. The gravity in the air was palpable, history poised to tip from centuries of longing into the birth cry of a nation. As he read the Declaration of Independence, Ben-Gurion's voice was steady, his frame tense but resolute. With those words, the millennia-old yearning of a people for return and self-determination crystallized into the State of Israel. The backdrop to this declaration was not one of celebration, but of defiance. British rule was ending and their mandate dissolved. Surrounding Arab states were amassing armies, vowing to prevent the Jewish state's birth. Yet for Ben-Gurion, there was no turning back. He believed that only through this act of boldness could the Jewish people assert their sovereignty and secure their future. Prior to the declaration, Ben-Gurion faced profound political divisions. Some, including moderate Zionists, feared the risks, the prospect of invasion, and the lack of military resources could spell disaster. Others insisted that without action, the window for sovereignty would close, perhaps forever. Ben-Gurion, weighing pragmatism against the national dream, listened but ultimately chose action. He believed history demanded decisiveness. In the hours that followed the declaration, euphoria and anxiety mingled across Jewish communities. Radio, broadcasts, and hasty bulletins announced the establishment of a Jewish state, but Arab artillery fire soon shattered the celebrations in many places. The first hours of statehood were forged in gunfire and promise. Ben-Gurion's charge as Prime Minister and Minister of Defense was nothing short of Herculean. He needed to improvise a government, unify disparate militias, Haganah, Irgun, and Lehi, into a single army and secure vital arms for survival. With the British withdrawing and the United States wavering, Ben-Gurion made fateful decisions, such as accepting clandestine arms shipments from embattled sources and ordering military recruitment even as Jerusalem itself was under siege. Remarkably, amid war's chaos, Ben-Gurion insisted on state building, the creation of ministries, issuance of currency, and establishment of law and order. He urged the absorption of Holocaust survivors and refugees, extending hope in the midst of ruin. His vision was that wars might cease, but the task of building a homeland began immediately. His leadership during these days of fire confirmed what many already believed. Ben-Gurion was not merely a political figure, but a patriarch of his people. Confronted by impossible odds, he refused to waver. Every decision, painful, controversial, sometimes fatal, rested on his belief that the Jewish nation could only be truly safe and whole with a state of its own. And so, Israel was born amid declaration and defiance, its founder's signature imprinted not only on a document, but on the soul of a nation. Chapter 6. Wartime Decisions, Navigating Survival and Statehood. From its very first day, the State of Israel found itself at war. Ben-Gurion, as both Prime Minister and Minister of Defense, stood at the epicenter of this existential struggle, forced to make decisions that would chart the country's survival and set precedents for its future. The fighting that erupted in 1948 was unlike any conventional war. Israel was surrounded by 5 invading Arab armies, its forces outnumbered, under-equipped, and facing shortages in every conceivable field. Yet Ben-Gurion's genius lay in his ability to improvise and organize amid crisis. He believed that unity and resolve could compensate for deficits in material and experience. Among his earliest challenges was unifying the various Jewish militias into a single Israeli Defense Forces, IDF. The integration was fraught with friction. Ideological schisms ran deep, most notably with the right-wing Irgun and the more radical Lehi groups. Ben-Gurion understood the peril of a state divided internally while beset by threats from every side. Despite threats of rebellion, he insisted on a single chain of command, even ordering the controversial shelling of the Irgun arms ship Altalena to enforce the principle of state authority over private armies. He also knew that military victory alone would not ensure survival. Ben-Gurion initiated emergency policies to bring in Holocaust survivors and refugees, even as the young state was under siege. He brokered difficult alliances, sought international support, and sent agents abroad to purchase desperately needed arms. Even as shells rained down on Jerusalem and the Negev, he coordinated with scientists and engineers to improvise munitions and armored vehicles. Every wartime decision weighed heavily on him. Reports of casualties, village expulsions, and civilian suffering filled his nights with unease. Ben-Gurion believed in the necessity of self-defense, but struggled with the moral cost of war, particularly as it touched on questions of the country's demographic future and the fate of Palestinian Arab communities displaced by the fighting. Yet Ben-Gurion's focus never wavered. He viewed the immediate war as a battle for physical survival and the war's aftermath as a struggle for Israel's soul. Following the armistice, he presided over the construction of hundreds of immigrant camps, absorption centers, and new settlements. Every new home, every olive tree planted was a testament to a people who, having survived the Holocaust, now fought to belong. Under his stewardship, Israel emerged from war scarred but standing, its sovereignty recognized, its existence contested, its future teetering on the strength of vision and the resolve of its people. Chapter 7. Legacy and Vision, Nation Builder, Prime Minister, Dreamer. With the guns silenced, Ben-Gurion looked beyond the battlefield. The responsibilities of peace would demand just as much courage, if not more, than the crucible of war. As Israel's first prime minister, he grappled with nation building on a vast and ambitious scale, absorbing waves of immigrants, fostering economic growth, and forging a shared Israeli identity from a tapestry of global Jewish cultures. Ben-Gurion was a builder at heart. His vision encompassed not only a secure state, but a just and modern society. He championed the ingathering of exiles, believing that Israel must serve as a haven for Jews from every corner of the world. Yet this meant confronting immense challenges: overcrowding, poverty, social rifts, and the daunting task of integrating Holocaust survivors, Sephardic Jews from North Africa and the Middle East, and refugees from Yemen and Iraq. His empathy for these new arrivals drew from his own immigrant experience. Ben-Gurion visited the tent camps where new Israelis lived, listening to stories of loss and hope. He called for massive public works projects, planting forests, draining swamps, and building the modern city of Beersheba in the arid Negev. He was often seen in the fields, shovel in hand, boosting morale and embodying his principle of leadership. By example, education stood at the heart of his vision. He championed the founding of schools, universities, and research centers, believing an educated citizenry was essential for democracy and innovation. His policies, at times controversial, included secularizing the state's institutions while granting concessions to religious parties, seeking, with varying success, to balance tradition and modernity. Ben-Gurion's premiership was marked by political conflict as well. His insistence on centralized authority and broad state responsibilities drew fierce opposition. His temper was legendary, but so too was his humility. He resigned more than once, seeking to renew his mandate or retire to a life of study in Sde-Boker, his desert home. Yet his vision lived on, not only in policies, but in the intangibles. A spirit of resilience, a belief in the possibility of unity, and a dream that outlasted his own years in office. Ben-Gurion once mused that, in Israel, in order to be a realist, you must believe in miracles. His legacy is best measured by the improbable fact of the nation he helped create, improbable yet real as any hope fulfilled. Chapter 8. Enduring Impacts. Ben-Gurion's Israel in the modern world time has added both clarity and complexity to Ben-Gurion's legacy. The Israel he dreamt of and struggled to build has evolved in ways he both foresaw and never could have imagined. His imprint endures not only in monuments and statutes, but also in the living debates that define Israeli society today. Ben-Gurion's conception of Israel as both a Jewish and democratic state set the stage for decades of debate and development. His insistence on state unity over ideological factionalism, secular education, and a robust national defense continues to shape political discourse. Yet some of his decisions, the integration policies, the balance between secular and religious interests, the handling of the Arab minority remain sources of both pride and controversy. Internationally, Israel stands as a testament to Ben-Gurion's relentless diplomacy and courage. A nation that survived multiple wars, absorbed millions of immigrants, and became a hub for technology, culture, and democratic values. But new challenges persist. Peace and reconciliation with its neighbors, bridging internal socio-economic gaps, and maintaining the delicate balance between plurality and identity. Ben-Gurion's humility in the face of history's demands has become legendary. In retirement at Sde-Boker, he became a symbol of simplicity and service, epitomizing the values he wished for the state itself: resilience, adaptability, and a ceaseless longing for peace. Later generations have studied his speeches, his cautious optimism, and his willingness to take risks for the sake of a greater good. Perhaps his most enduring impact, a lesson for all nation builders, is the value of vision married to action, hope tethered to realism. Ben-Gurion believed that impossible dreams could not only inspire, but also guide practical decisions, and that national survival depended as much on moral resolve as on military might. As Israel moves deeper into the 21st century, Ben-Gurion's legacy remains a compass and a challenge, a reminder that the work of shaping a nation is never truly completed, but must be renewed by every generation in the spirit of its founding father. If you found this video helpful, inspiring, or entertaining, don't forget to hit that like button. And if you're new here, make sure to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss out on future content. Your support means the world. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below.